Road Beast Warrior, Gene. Good to see you. I gotta say that, number one, thank you for your patience, but your commitment and understanding that this is a scientific process that I'm going through. And every variable counts, from a person's age to the stage that they are in development, lean muscle mass, hydration, nutrients. Every little factor comes into play with what we're doing here. And so with that said, I want to express the dire need to be able to do what I'm doing right now, and to realize that this takes so much time and so much effort, that this is the missing component. This is the missing variable, and that is continuous training, long, slow distance walking, to continue to walk hour after hour, day after day. So I'm going into my 4th month of this right now. And very soon, this is not going to be a supplement of training that is available to me, but what will be more ready and available is going to be HIIT style training. And so knowing that, I focused in all my efforts on what I'm doing right now. There will still be walks in the future. There will still be long, slow distance walks, but they will be used as an application that, just like carb loading, it's something that you do few and far between, only when you absolutely need to do it, but it is planned. It is planned. And the specific purpose is to slowly burn off the glycogen, right? Stored glycogen, to oxidize and to utilize fat, but to also go into a low heart rate where there is little to no negative cortisol producing negative effects from the exercise itself. It's a sneaky, like I say, it's the back door to fitness. But the one thing that's missing with my physique, and particularly with how I'm storing, is something that I've been aware of for many months. But having only so much time, it's only so many resources, I realized this is what I've got to do. This is the pressing need. What I'm doing right now is continuous training, gradual intensity training. This is it. And as the intensity comes up, right? So you can look at it through a macro scale. I'm gradually going up to a higher intensity from a macro view as well, where over the course of the year, the workouts were intermittent. They were establishing minimum workout base to where I could last for 10 or 12 sets in the gym, and then I might spread it out. Instead of doing one huge workout, I'm doing several little workouts. Now I'm pressed to be able to go in and do trainings. Again, any of this stuff that I talk about, this is where I believe most people go wrong. In fact, I know it because I look at the routine and I can tell from the person's physique what they're doing or not doing. And that's not just with AAS, PEDs, you know, that has to do with their diet, things that they've gotten lucky with genetically, which is pretty rare, and mainly the attributes of their training protocol and what they're eating. And some people have ridden on a good metabolic base for quite a while, but they came from a place where they were spoiled. They were doing things that didn't seem like it was anything like a spoiled little brat taking tennis lessons. Someone on a track team that just takes it for granted when they go home and they eat good solid food that the parents picked out. They never go without a meal. You know, having good teachers, having a good structure. So they try to build momentum off of this. I'm for all the people who are the rejects, the people who feel like, and have always probably felt like, they don't matter. They are the marginalized. I'm here to show you that I'm 100% marginalized, but I'm not homogenized. And I'm here doing it and working with what I have, when I can and how I can, long, slow distance, continuous training, and eventually, this month actually, we're hitting the head where we got as lean as we possibly could doing this long, slow distance. The muscles, they got as conditioned as they possibly could, and we're still going. We're still ramping up as I talk about this. We're still training more, we're doing more, but the intensity aspect of it, the gradual intensity now in a macro view, we're coming in past our ninth month and going into the last quarter of when I started doing the ketosis and training at the same time. And I'll lay out what I did throughout that entire macro year, because it was very articulated, it was very well established, but also I was succumbing, and I'd plan one thing and then life would show me another. And for me, it shows the practicum of a steady state and the reality of what a person my age, with my level of conditioning or lack thereof, can handle on a mesocycled, from a mesocycle view. on it down into the microcycles where you have your workouts and then you have your weeks within the workouts. And I think it's a really good example of building back your base. Arms. You don't even really need to do specific arm exercises, but the one arm exercise that you do need to do, and that's, you know, dips, or you want to build up those triceps. Bar dips, you come down nice and low, you're hitting all three heads. You can angle in your elbows and get, you know, push-ups into single arm push-ups. That's great. You know, the biceps are hit through all those pull-ups and the explosiveness that you do through pull-ups, any rowing exercise, and those will build the biceps up. To get the round, nice peaks though, you're going to need to do these hanging, high pulley, body weight curls that, you know, through the forehead. It's almost like a skull crusher for the biceps. And it's very much so, and equates very much so to a seated barbell curl, where you're using your own body weight, and you're using the force, and you're isolating it, right, in a compound movement. That'll bring up your biceps. And you can get, you know, I could continue on with this training and continue to get really decent results. But there's nothing like machines where you're able to go continuously from one exercise to the next. And you have free motion. And you can just jump on the TRX and you can go do some heavy dumbbell curls. You know, when you can train systemically and record this shit, that's where we're going in the next month. And it's very exciting because I'm in the kind of shape where I'm walking 10, 12 miles, enjoying it. This is my base. And that's the whole point, is you have to build a base that's based around endurance, stabilization, mobilization, right? And the only way you're going to be able to do that is my entire training protocol for myself and for the many clients. I'm using the training protocol that I used to train my clients on right now. It's very base, and it's very basic. And it is stating that you've got to come down to your natural set point, to your body weight, and then you build on from there. You get to your physiologically leanest state, and then you start to build from that. Everything is coming out of your core. Everything's coming out of that abdomen. I'm not even sucking in here, but that's a small waist. That's a small, tiny waist. I got there by undulating. You're using all of the fat, all the stored carbohydrates, and you push it and push it, but you never need, and this is where the gradual intensity comes in. You do what you can, where you can, a little at a time. You draw upon those energies, you deplete those energies, and then you push it far enough, right? That's what the 3-day cycle and the 5-day cycle is, depletion. Using just the protein, using just ketosis or carnivore at certain times, transitioning into these states, using a better uptake of amino acids, more nutrient-rich supercompensation bouts, where you are exercising. Like in some instances, I would say that I would exercise metabolically more than an intense workout, right? More than an intense workout, more than a long, arduous walk of 25 miles, just by carb loading on the appropriate carbohydrates. In other words, eating the clay pot cooking, taking in the multi-layers of vegetables and fruit and high fiber sources. I mean, I would even put like a little bit of red wine in there that didn't have any nitrates. I would put a little apple cider vinegar in there. I would put minerals in with it. I would concoct spices, where I would find spices and place spices within that metabolically stimulating meal. Figs topped with Himalayan sprouts and avocados. There's nothing like it. So once you're that depleted and you've trained your muscle and it is just rapidly absorbing those nutrients and all that thermogenic heat is being produced, and then the next day you get up and you start to deplete again, right? You're filling that balloon up with carbohydrates, hydrate, water. You're forcing the muscles to store up to, and it's probably beyond this scientifically, I don't know. The last research I read that it can be up above 120% of what your typical glycogen storage would be if you're coming from a depleted state. So I would take that onto an extreme, right? And I'd realize it's only common sense to say that if I'm completely depleting and then all of a sudden I get in every nutrient that I could possibly imagine in a given time frame, and granted, you're not going to be able to eat, especially coming from a depleted state, you're not going to be able to just eat like 5 servings of what I'm talking about, which is high fiber sources, especially with the stomach shrinking and everything. So with these really big supercompensation loads, with this nutrient bolstering, you have to get to the point where you're willing to and able to eat over an extended period of time. So I would set aside 4 to 6 hours at times, and then allow yourself a gastric emptying and a flushing state to occur, where I would focus on, decaffeinated teas, and I would be focusing in on like nettle tea or, Madagascar. I would go through all these teas, hot teas that would just flush my system out. And the next day I'm up, walking again, training again, but I would match and marry certain and specific training attributes that would exhaust the muscle cells of all of the stored glycogen, even fat, like getting down to a point where I walked 25 miles. I did max strength exercises for 5 days at a time. I would eat nothing, just protein, but I would be going through this amino acid therapy, I wouldn't even take nutrients in at times. And I don't know how that would be looked at in a scientific study or under the electron microscope, but it felt like the right thing to do, and it set off autophagy. I had to reach this depleted state where I didn't have anything available to me but the protein, and my body began to rely on those proteins. And the ghrelin, the stomach lining's rubbing together, you're getting up, you have the blisters on your feet, you're getting lighter and lighter, you feel like you're disappearing into nothing. There's a lot of spiritual implications and connotations that go on here. And then you're switching gears, and you're bolstering, and you're loading up, and then you go through that process again. And you need to plan out a quarterly and a more macro view of gorging at that point, where you might actually plan out, like as you come back and you're looking at these micro and mesocycles and macrocycles, they should all be synonymously look very identical and the same, where what I'm talking about is you're looking at a 3 to 5 day cycle, well, you have a 3 to 5 month cycle. You have a 3 to 5 hour cycle, and all those cycles look almost identical to one another, right? Until you have a 3 to 5 year cycle. You have a 30 to 50 year cycle. And when you start to approach things like this, you begin to see how entire new, investigated and attributes that we are commonly unaware of will manifest themselves through longevity, autophagy, and let's face it, Maslow's hierarchy of needs, a transcendence does occur. Rogue Beast Warrior out. Words to live by.